into the 11 with us this week is Filippo Bellu. I'm saying that right?
Bellu, yeah.
Bellu. Okay. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for stepping in. Can't wait to dive into your story, man.
Thanks for having me.
Of course.
I'm ready.
So a kid from Venice, Italy, and now is sitting in a house and outside of Albany, New York, talking about his experience of playing college soccer and living in America. I mean, where do we even begin in trying to tell this story?
Yeah, I get this question a lot. A lot of people asking, they said, why did you move from Venice, Italy to Albany, New York? And the answer I always give is, if you see it, it's all about perspective. When I go home, I'm not a kid from Venice. I'm a kid from Noale, which is actually 30 minutes from Venice. So it's not the island. It's not what everybody kind of imagines, although I went to school in the island, but it was a small town. And my friends think that I moved from this small town in Noale to New York. They don't know that it's Albany, New York.
Yeah.
They don't know what it is. And nor I knew before I came. When I picked Albany, I thought it was relatively close to New York City, and that's all I knew about the States, basically. I only came for a family trip when I was a kid, and in New York City only.
Yeah.
So that was all I knew about New York. And so in my mind, it was, I'm going to go to Albany, which would be the first step for me to end up in New York City. Because at the time, that's what my dream was.
The dream, yeah.
That's what I wanted. So here I am in upstate still, which I like.
Yeah.
But here's how I kind of like end up here.
Yeah, it's so funny that you mentioned that, because I've heard that from so many other foreigners that come to New York. One of my best friends from London, he was being recruited by a school called SUNY Adirondack, which is like up closer, like Saratoga, like Glens Falls, kind of Adirondack Mountains. And I remember he said he was asking the coach when he was being recruited, he was like, yeah, so like we're close to New York City, right? And like the coaches are gonna kind of like,
yes.
Yeah, they'll be like, yeah, absolutely. You can get on a train, you'll be down there like in an hour. Then you come to find out, like you're here, like probably gonna be like 2.5 hour drive. Still doable, but it's not like you're just in a little borough just outside of Manhattan. But I mean, what even is that? Again, that's how we come from Italy to Albany. But how does it come about to do it via soccer?
Yeah, so my way is, so it all started with a teammate of mine at my small club soccer team in Italy, which I used to play in 5th division. So nothing, my dream of becoming a professional player was gone before I decided to come to the US. For me, soccer has always been a way to get other things. I love the game and I love playing it. I still play today, but if I wanted to become a professional player, I would have stayed in Italy probably, because the route would have been probably easier. But I wanted to have the chance to kind of make something out of it and get a degree with a scholarship almost for free was kind of like the most I could aspire to.
Yeah.
And that's why I decided to listen to my friend that was already going through the process. And it starts with you pay a little fee and you go do a tryout where there is no video taken. It's simply kids playing on a soccer field, and the owner of the company that kind of facilitates the kids to come to the US kind of puts the kids in contact with soccer coaches, college soccer coaches in the US. Will just watch the game and pick. I believe the first day it was just literally 4 hours, kind of like all playing, and the guy was just looking at us playing, and then he would pick the best 22 or 25 with subs, and it would send us a message the day after the tryout and say you kind of passed. And it would give us the date for the next tryout, which was the most kind of the better one. And he told us that there would have been, I want to say, 5 or 6 college coaches coming down from the US to watch. And of course, to go to the next tryout, even though you kind of like made it through, if they made you think that you made it through, you still have to pay another fee, of course, to get in. But it's compared to where I am now and what I did with it, the fee was illusory, like $100.
Yeah.
For the first one and $100 for the second. And so we have this second tryout where the coaches are watching us. There was, I remember, a couple. There was AIC, which is close to here. There was Saint Bonaventure, which is a bit north, but still. So D1, D2 coaches, and each coach, I believe, picked at least one player. So there and then, they all made an offer to one player. Then, of course, I didn't get picked. And so I was sad, but I said, okay, it wasn't meant to be. But so I didn't hear what the offer was and how they kind of like approached, because they don't know anything about the kids. They don't know, in what grade, for example, they are in high school, or if they started college. So I don't believe that they came down on the table and said, this is my offer, take it or leave it. They started having a conversation, so nothing was set in stone the first day. But what they did, the company that was organizing the whole thing, took a video of the game. And then they reached out to me. They said, you didn't get picked, but for another fee, we can kind of build up the highlight video just of that game, 2 hours of playing. In 5th division, they don't record the games, so I had nothing to kind of like show. So I said, okay, sure, let's do it. Let's see how it turns out. And I did it because I remember being the top scorer for those 2 hours. They put me striker, which my position was winger. And I managed to score like 6 goals in 2 games or 3 games that we had. Everybody was not knowing each other. The defense was very disorganized. So I was lucky. I kind of like went through a couple. But I said, okay, we can add the 6 goals. I hope that the coach that the coaches that will watch this video will understand that it's a one-day thing, so that there's not much that can be added. And so they did the video. They did their job. They sent it to a bunch of coaches, colleges, and I got, I think, 3 or 4 coaches reaching out. 3 of them were in South or Deep West, like kind of like there was one in Utah, one in Georgia, and the other one like Kansas, something like that. And they were all willing to give me full scholarship, but I saw the facilities weren't great. They were just like mediocre schools, nothing to be excited about.
Yeah.
And the fourth one was St. Rose, and the coach starts talking to me. He said, I cannot give you full scholarship because St. Rose is not in a good financial standing. And now it makes me, because
which we'll talk about in a little bit.
But so he said, I can give you this, which was X amount. It wasn't like, for me, I was willing to spend, I think it was, I want to be transparent, $2,000 or $3,000 per semester that I had to pay. Plus room and board. So I had to pay my rent, and I had to pay groceries and everything I need for living. So my thought process was, okay, my parents are paying for my groceries anyways, so that goes out of the equation. But rent, I will try to look for something cheap. I had a room for like $320, so I was living really with rats and cockroaches the first year. But so I decided to take the offer. I skipped one little step, which was him actually flying to Venice to see me playing.
Wow.
So I was like, wow, this is like professional,
Yeah.
Our league is probably in a 20 miles radius, and now this guy is flying.
And this is Coach Ciano at the time, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, for people who listen, he's been on the show as well. What I think is interesting about that too is like, we now know sort of probably at that time he was like what, a part-time coach?
Yes.
So
yeah, he was full-time, but he had a part-time pay.
Yeah.
So,
and that was also just the way he approached coaching, like, because he's kind of, I'm sure as you know, he's different than a lot of other coaches out there, and who knows what his recruiting budget is, but for him to like fly all the way to come see you play in Italy, like that's a huge expense, and I don't know if people know like what some of these schools, their budgets are and what they can really do. Like, that's a pretty big deal, and that definitely shows that he's serious about you coming to St. Rose.
Yeah, he was, and it shows also how kind of he was trying to do anything that he was able to do to build the best possible team with the resources that he had. I didn't know that Ciano was in this podcast. He's the best coach I've ever had. When he came, he saw me playing, and we were on a 10 wins streak. And we were second, and we played the third last at their home field. We lost 4-1.
The perfect game for him to come watch.
I didn't score. I didn't assist. And so, yeah, I mean, luckily it didn't make him change his mind, but I don't think he was more convinced to get me when he came to watch. I remember the conversation that I had with him. He said, I see potential in you, but you don't defend ever. and I said, well,
has anything changed since then, or no?
I had to change, otherwise it wouldn't make me play.
Yeah.
Well, my answer to that was, Coach, I'm a wing. Like, I'm a winger. I didn't know wingers had to defend. The soccer in Italy is different. So if you are a defender, you defend. Otherwise, you stay up,
Yeah.
Especially me, I was the fastest guy on the team. Because in Italy I would play the how do you call it, like the adult league, kind of like a normal league. If you see the Premier League, you have people that are up to 35, 40 years old, not 40 but 35. So I was one of the youngest on the teams, and that's also why I was one of the fastest. Then when I came to the US, everything changed. But at that time, my coach wanted me to stay up to counter. So I was not even putting any effort in trying to like direct a pass or anything. I had no defensive knowledge at all. So yeah, when we talked, he said, "You don't defend, but you have the skills. I see it. I'll talk to you later." Basically, left. And then he sent me a message. He said, "Filippo, I came all the way here to see you playing. I don't want to say you disappointed me. I see the potential, but you need to be willing to work hard, and you need to learn how to defend. So I will give you an offer if you promise me that you will actually work on defending." I say that, sure, let's do it. So yeah, and then he gave me the offer, and I accepted it like right away. And then I came up, and he moved me soccer wise. He moved me from being a winger to being a striker. So he changed like my role.
So what was then actually coming over to America? What were some of the adjustments that you had to make, or what culture shocks did you experience, whether it be from just the soccer piece? I mean, now you're playing a new position, you're playing it in a new country, you're playing it, like you said, it's a different level now because it's everybody's kind of around the same age. And two, even stuff off the field. I mean, what's the process like when you touch down that first time and you find yourself in Albany, New York?
Well, Ciano picked me up with this brand new Chevy that said the College of St. Rose. I think he borrowed it from the security in campus. I was like, wow, this
is official.
Nice. And then he dropped me off at the house that I got the room for rent. And I was like, it was like a reality check right away. I was like, wow, okay. I didn't have a bed the first day. I didn't have a mattress. I didn't have anything. The room was empty. I didn't have a car. I didn't have friends. So, well, I slept on the ground the first day. And then I had a Nigerian guy, which was not on the team. He was just renting he tried out for the team, but he was renting one of the rooms.
Yeah.
And he just showed me how to get to the mall. I grabbed the mattress, brought it back, put the mattress on the floor, grabbed some sheets, which I had no idea what king and queen was. I had no internet because I didn't have. It was only Wi-Fi, and I couldn't connect to the Wi-Fi, so I got queen sheets for a twin size bed. I was like, wow, first purchase wrong. So I slept with those queen sheets for the first, I think, 6 months.
I mean, I guess that's better than doing the other way, right?
That's definitely true. I love them. It was like extra.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the first approach. So it was complicated, I gotta say, the first days, not having soccer, because soccer was going to start in 2 weeks. So the first 2 weeks I was by myself. I didn't know English very well at all. I couldn't understand people, even though like I had some vocabulary, but the English we learned at school, first of all, in Italy is not like northern countries like Sweden, Denmark, Finland. They know English since they were born. They watch movies in English. We watch dubbed stuff. Us, the Spanish people, and the French definitely have a harder time picking up English, because I believe the school system doesn't do a great job, but that's for another day. Anyways, I couldn't really understand people. And so it was complicated to communicate. I would only like speak with my family all day, trying to feed myself, survive. But then when soccer started, we had a lot of international people. We had 3 practices a day. They were feeding me at the college, so everything went way better.
Yeah.
So those first 2 weeks probably were the worst of this whole experience, because I didn't know if I did the right choice. I had so much time to think.
Yeah.
And then the preseason was completely different. The physical requirements to be a college athlete are not the physical requirement that you need to be a soccer player in Italy at all. Soccer player in Italy has to be decent at kicking the ball and knowledge enough to see the game, see the movements. It's more theory. I would say. While here, fitness comes first, and I didn't know that well enough. So the first day of practice, we did a 2 miles in 12 minutes, and it took me a decent 14, or 13, I want to say. But it was my first practice, so you need to, think that I wanted to prove everyone that I was good and I was hardworking. So if it was my second practice, I probably would have gave up after 4 laps. You know what I mean? I was done, and I couldn't believe some people. There was a guy from Tel Aviv, Israel, which is now my best friend, Niv, which is probably 5'7", 5'8", and doesn't have the body type that you would think, can beat anyone at the 2 in 12, and he finished in 10:40. And I said, okay, like if he can do it, nothing to take off. He was one of the best technical players I've ever played with, but I said that's all hard work. It's not genetics, The second one that came was a Finnish guy, 6'3", huge thighs, like bigger than my head. So I said that may be genetic, but the first one, definitely not. So that was a good lesson for me. And soccer-wise, like I said, after those 2 weeks, my focus was soccer. And Ciano is a guy that treats you like a professional player and expects you to be a professional player, which works in a D2 college. Might work for 70% of the team. So one critique that we gave him was, he was too professional, too good for us.
Yeah. Some guys are there like just because they love the game and they want to be around the team, and you still kind of get that at the Division 2 level. Not everyone's taking it as serious.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And he at the time, he wasn't empathic enough to understand kind of like how we wanted to be treated. He treated everybody as a professional player and expected that back. And so sometimes he was disappointed, but he wants to be a professional coach, and he can be, and he will be, I'm sure. But he wasn't dealing with professional athletes. That was a little bit the gap that team and coach had at the time, at the beginning, because we would have 3 practices a day instead of 2, and it was telling us what to eat. He was very on us, which is not wrong if you dream about being a soccer player. And I mean, at D2 college, you still are committing to something that is almost professional, but I don't know. It was very extra at first, at least for me, coming from a 5th division where we would go out to the bar on Friday after practice, or on Sunday after the game, or on Tuesday after practice. So, and I remember soccer-wise, the first 2 weeks we had preseason. They had friendly game, and I didn't play because I didn't pass the 2 in 12. So that was the deal. Then I took the 2 in 12 again on Monday. The second week of preseason, we were, of course, destroyed. So instead of doing 13, I did 15. but because I had a lot of work in my legs, everybody did worse. And it was only for the people that didn't pass the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And so very heavy on fitness. And then we get into the first game of the year, and he starts me for the first time. The game ends 4-3, and I score a hat trick. First day, first official game. The guy Ciano thinks that he got the new Cristiano Ronaldo or something. He was so happy, and I was like, "Yeah, I mean, see, I don't really need the fitness. I'm a different player. You know, I move only when it's needed. Blah blah blah." I didn't tell him that, but kind of like that was the vibe, and he was like, "Okay, if you score 3 goals, kind of."
I can't really argue with your 12 minutes if you're scoring 3 goals a game.
Exactly. So he basically showed me that he was trusting me and had me playing consistently, starting consistently. So fasting forward, how do you say? Fast forward to the end of the season, I scored 5 goals in total, and 3 were the first game. Because the problem was I never played 2 games in 1 week. I never practiced every day. And not only that, Ciano's practices are tough even if you are American. So I was done after the 2 weeks of preseason. I had the 2 best weeks of my soccer career, probably. Like in terms of shape, I was flying everywhere, feeling great. And then after that, my legs just gave up. They were like, what's going on here?
This is too much. Yeah.
And then,
because did he not have like a really recovery sessions or stuff, or was it always like kind of just keep pushing?
He thought that the recovery was the ice bath that we were taking after the practices, and he thought that would have, erased all the work that he was putting on.
Yeah.
And I'm sure now we had the first season was not great. We didn't even make the playoffs. The second season, I don't want to say he completely changed his style, but he definitely lowered the amount of work. And that was, for me, we got to the final of the playoffs. We lost in the final 2-1, but we beat Franklin Pierce, which is now 2 times national champions. And at the time, they got to the final 4 or final 8 that year. So we were definitely a solid team, and we could pull it till the end of the season, because the problem of the first season was not only my problem. We had 8 wins in the first 10 games and then 3 wins in the last 10.
Yeah.
Because
I'm sure injuries and fatigue, and everyone's just kind of tapering off.
The only ones that were actually consistently giving their contribute to the team were the older people, the ones that had Ciano for more than a year. For example, this guy Niv, which was the captain, the Israeli guy, he would come to practice and say, "I'm injured," or "I don't feel good, like my ankle hurts." And Ciano would tell him, "Well, can you push it?" Because Ciano tries to have you practice even if you're injured. If you can practice, why not? And he would say no. While if he was coming to me and I would say,
"Yeah, you're still trying to prove yourself." Yeah.
My thighs, my legs are dead. I really can't. And he would say, "Well, why don't you give it a try? And then if you can make it, just sit down." And then I would end up practicing the whole session, So it was more like some people understood that he was giving us too much work, and so decided to kind of like on their own stop practicing. But they were in a different position. The guy was the captain, number 10, best technical guy. The midfield wouldn't have been the midfield that it was if he wasn't there.
Yeah.
So Carlos too, even though Carlos has always been a hard worker, but but he was trying to, not overdo himself, while us, the attackers, some of the defenders to the fullbacks, at some point we just didn't have any more. And I was one of the first ones. Like I said, I scored the fourth goal was 2 games after, and then I scored a very bad goal in the middle of the season because a defender just made a mistake, made a pass horizontal. I intercepted it and I closed it. But like I said, 5 goals in one season.
Yeah, in the beginning, you're probably thinking you're scoring 10, 15 goals. Like, you're going to be leading goal scorer in the conference.
I thought that I had more than everyone, but it was just, I've never had that kind of training in me. Yeah. Never in my life. So transformed me to a different player, a better player at first, but then a worse player right after. After 3 games, I was worse than what I was in Italy. So,
yeah. I have to imagine that first year is so huge for you. Like, and I'm wondering, like, are there any points in that year where you're kind of like still questioning that decision of coming over? Because like you said, those first 2 weeks without soccer, like, and I completely can relate to that story. It was like similar for me when I went to Germany. Like, I showed up and they showed me where my room was and I was like, whoa, this is where I'm staying. They're like, you don't have a bed yet, but here's your air mattress that you can sleep on. Of course, by the morning time, there's no air in it anymore, right? It's one of those types of things. So I get that, where you're like sitting kind of in this room and you're like, what have I just done? And then you go on to have the grueling preseason, the grueling American preseason with, of course, the fitness test and just, these highs and lows that we speak about in soccer. Like, is there ever a point where you're like, I just don't know if this is for me? Or do you kind of hit a point where you're like, no, this has been a difficult experience, but I want to keep pushing and see where it can take me?
Yeah, I can think about, I want to say at least one other time in which I was close to kind of give up, and it was still on the first year, but it was in the spring. I think the first semester in college for an Italian kid, it's just like, it's what every Italian kid dreams, kind of like of our age, 18, 19. I came that I was 20. I turned 21 1 week after I was here. So during preseason, my birthday gift was the 2 in 12. So
happy birthday to you.
Yeah, right. It was, wow, the worst birthday of my life for sure. But so we watch movies growing up, of what high school looks like here, what college looks like here, the parties, the Project X and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I have a vivid memory of the first week of preseason that we went out, of course, and we went to, I believe it was Hamilton Street or one of the streets next to St. Rose. And I will never forget the image of people on the roof and police trying to stop guys, and music everywhere, and the craziness of college, I was like, wow, I can't wait to tell my friends, this experience. So the first semester with soccer, with me trying to grab as many experiences as I could from the college life, I was too busy even thinking about why I was here. I was having fun. I loved the first semester after those 2 weeks. Then winter came, I went home, and
I think that's always tough for foreigners when they go back for that first time, and then it's like, all right, now you got to get back on the plane again, and this time it's not for soccer. You just got to go do school.
Exactly. And it's after 3 weeks, and they fly by. You have to see all your friends, all your family, so many things to do. And then like that, it's over. You got to go back, and now it's cold season. You only have school. You practice inside at 6 a.m. because Siano likes 6 a.m. practices even in the spring, which, by the way, feel great when you're done. But waking
when
up,
you're showing up, yeah.
when you're showing up, you're doing the workout for an hour and a half. Then you're taking a shower. You have the best day of your life. But the 5 a.m. alarm is complicated. But anyways, in March of my second semester, of my first spring, it started snowing, and it was, I think, the end of March or even the beginning of April. And I was so over winter coming from Italy. We don't even have snow where I live. Like, I think I've seen snowing probably 4 times in my town. Then we have the Alps. We will go ski. Yes, but I was used to live in a place where in March flowers would bloom, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I would see my friends, talk to my friends. They would already hang out, be outside in the sun, beautiful weather, and I would still see snow outside. And thinking that I still had a month, even though it wasn't much. It was probably the longest month since I've been here, and that was another complicated time.
Yeah.
After that, I also met my wife the second year, and I started having other friends, started getting used to it, because it's all about the expectation. The first semester, as much as I didn't know that Albany was in New York, I didn't know that Albany was winter until April, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So my mind, my body was ready in March to bloom like the flowers, but Albany wasn't ready. So the second year,
now you have different expectations.
correct,
You know what to expect.
I was already there. I said, okay, March, April, May is gonna suck, but I know it since February, you know? So I have a different mindset. I want to finish school. The first year, initially when I came, I wanted to do only 1 year and then come back home because, of course, I didn't know anything. I didn't want to get a degree necessarily here. But then when I went into the second year, that mindset also changed. And I said, okay, now I'm doing the second, I'm going to finish.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, that was the second moment of struggle. After that, I really can't. I probably had days up and downs like everyone, but I can't recollect a moment that I remember to this day being, ready to go home or.
Yeah. Well, because I mean, so when's your first year? Because I know also you had experienced COVID too while being here, which I have to imagine is, it was a crazy experience for all people that were in college and all student athletes. But I have to imagine too, especially being an international student and, going through something that the world has never really seen before and trying to do it in a foreign country. Like, was that your junior year or your senior year? That was 2020.
So it was my senior year. I think. That was COVID year, yes. Because Siano finally made me captain after 3 years. He could have done it the year before, but it's okay. I forgive him. But yeah, and it was COVID, so I never played really.
We forgot to wear the band.
No. I wore it we had like a small spring season.
Yeah.
Fall was completely canceled. We had a spring season where some colleges decided they were okay in playing. We had like 6-7 games, which we beat everyone, by the way. We were a great team. So too bad we didn't play that year because I think it was the most complete team that I've played in St. Rose.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, COVID, it was tough. I didn't get to go home, but I went to my wife's house and her family is amazing. They've always welcomed me from the first day, not knowing me. And I lived there for 3 months.
Wow.
So she has 2 sisters, a brother, 3 dogs. We had a cat that we rescued here in Albany. We brought the cat to. So it was
It's a full house, yeah.
It was more family than my house, because I have one brother and my mom, my dad, but definitely like the most family I've ever experienced. So that helped, because I've heard a lot of people not having anyone here. They went home, most of them, because they were allowed to go back to their country. So my friend Harry from Sweden just went back and did the old spring semester from home.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, everybody got affected negatively from COVID. I consider myself one of the few lucky ones that really I bonded with my wife's family. Now they are my family too, because we live together. And I got to have another year of eligibility, because with COVID you get everybody got an extra year, and that allowed me to get my MBA, my master's degree. So
Yeah,
it was great.
yeah, and you go get an MBA, which again, like we were talking about even before, is a pretty cool opportunity that COVID was able to provide you, and you do it in Mississippi.
Yeah.
So you kind of went a completely different, a very different experience, I have to imagine, from Albany. Certainly, weather's probably going to be different. Culture's going to be a lot different. I mean, maybe talk to me about even how Mississippi came about, and then let's kind of dive into that experience, the Mississippi adventure.
First of all, nobody wanted me to go to Mississippi. No, not my now wife, my parents, Siano, the least.
So he wants you to stay and do
Yeah.
okay, yeah.
So I didn't stay because I like new experiences, and I felt that at that point I wasn't getting much from Albany, and like I said before, from St. Rose in particular, I had the same professors for 3 years, because I did only 3 years, because I did 1 year of college in Italy. But going into the MBA would have been the same professors for another year. So as I said, I always treated soccer as a way to get
experience
my
new things
and experience new things. Exactly. So at that point, my thought was I want to go to a different school, because not for soccer, a little bit for soccer, because I was tired of practicing in 20 degrees weather, but I was willing to stay in New York as well, if there was the right opportunity. But it was mainly because I wanted new professors, I wanted a new environment, from which I could have learned and make new experiences. So that said, if I had to list all the states in the US, Mississippi was probably close to last in my initial thoughts. I reached out to the company that brought me here, and I said, I want to transfer. Do you know anyone? And they started. I put together an highlight video, which was, to my soccer knowledge, decent. Like I was surprised on, because in the end it was 3 years of videos.
Yep.
It took me a while, but the end result was okay. But in the end, coaches look a lot at stats, and my first year I only had 5 goals, so I wasn't good. Then I believe I had 10 the second, and the third one was COVID. So my stats as a striker, where I played every game 80 minutes, 70 minutes, but I scored 1 goal every 2 games. So good, but not great,
Yeah.
Not enough to maybe get a D1 or. And a couple of D1s actually reached out, because they like grad students, because they have experience and they're older. One was La Salle, and the other one was St. Francis in Brooklyn.
Okay.
2 good programs, good schools, decent schools, but I was trying to not pay a dime. That was also one of my top priorities. And Brooklyn, they were going to give me something, but I would have to pay some out of pocket, and living in Brooklyn costs
expensive. Yeah.
way more than in Albany, for example. So I said,
there's no $320 rooms down there in Brooklyn.
No. No. Maybe if you share the room with other 3 people, maybe you can
exactly.
But so then the Mississippi came because it's funniest thing ever. The assistant coach, Saint Bonaventure. Sorry, I missay this name. I'm not gonna repeat it. But the Bears, wherever they are. He was assistant coach. He came down to watch the agency that brought me here, the tryout, as the representative of that college. And then he became very close friend with the main guy at the agency. And his girlfriend at the time was the women lacrosse or softball maybe, coach at Mississippi College.
Okay.
So that's how the coach in Mississippi kind of heard about me. This guy called him, he knew him, and he said, listen, I have this guy, are you interested? Turns out he was very interested. He started calling me like every day. He said, listen, let's do it. I give you full scholarship. We have a great team, great facilities, 3 grass fields, 2 practice fields, 1 just for games. Locker room, you have your own locker room, showers, we give you towels, we give you t-shirts every day. They had a lot of money. So, and that's, to be honest, the only way you can attract a good program and good players in Mississippi. Was that at first, when people hear Mississippi, they don't know what's Mississippi. There's really nothing attractive there. So after a week of him pushing, I went back to Siano. Siano offered me full scholarship as well. And so I had, I want to say 2 or 3 days that I thought about it, but deep in my mind, I knew that I wanted to change. I just want to change. So I said yes to Mississippi. After I called my mom, I said, what do you think about Mississippi? She said, don't go. I called my agency, the guy that basically referred me to Mississippi. I said, what do you think? He said, for me, don't go. Then I asked my now wife, I said, what if I move to Mississippi for 1 year? She said, hell no, don't do it.
Yeah.
And then I called the coach and I said, I'm coming. So I was alone on that choice. In regards to the kind of cultural shock, I always say I had a cultural shock when I came here. When I went from Albany to Mississippi, I didn't have a cultural shock. It might be because I was in a college environment in both, and it was a small college both times. And I was playing soccer with international people both times. But I also dealt with people outside of soccer. Nice people, by the way. Everybody is very... If there's one thing that Mississippi does better is hospitality there. Everybody really has the door open for you. They were inviting us for dinner all the time. All the alumni, college alumni or faculty members, they would say, come over for dinner,
Really?
Very nice.
Wow.
And school-wise, it was better. Now I can say it because St. Rose is going to close anyways. But the quality of the coaches, of the professors, maybe the same. But because St. Rose was trying to survive, they were having so many kids that didn't want to go to college. Parents were just paying, and they were getting their degree without doing anything. So the standard in class was very low. While in Mississippi, old college, very well financed by alumni, by the way. The quality of the students was better, and so the professors could raise the bar a little bit. So it was way more challenging. Also, I was getting the master, but I took a couple of undergrad classes and definitely better. The quality of the facilities for soccer, they were actually what my coach advertised, which was two perfect grass fields to practice, one perfect, best field in the division for the games. The first 2 weeks of preseason, we went to Florida. We played Nova, Southeastern, Palm Beach. We stayed at a hotel. We flew there.
You think you're a pro?
They treated us like real pros. If St. Rose was a step forward from Italy, this one was a step forward from St. Rose, definitely. Like, I've never slept. The distances were smaller here in the division. I'm saying, like, where the colleges were. Yep. So the away games were probably 3-4 hours bus drive. But in Mississippi, but here in Albany, I never slept at a hotel for an away game. But before the semifinal and the final of the playoffs, the second year. While in Mississippi, every away game we had to sleep away. Yes,
that far.
The minimum was probably 3 or 2, but they still wanted us to sleep out. The coach wanted us to get into game mindset the day before, and sometimes we would have 2 away games in a row. So maybe on Tuesday and then on Friday, we would play the 2 Tennessee teams. And then the next week, it was the 2 Alabama teams. And there were 2 teams in Mississippi, 2 teams in Florida. Now I don't remember, but it was very well organized for them to have to go away in Tennessee only once to play both teams and then come back.
So you'd stay there for like the whole week?
Yeah. I wouldn't go to school. Well, most of the classes it was after COVID, so they
still could do online stuff.
Yeah, they were offering virtual. But I don't regret the Mississippi time. There wasn't much to do other than soccer, really. Like, it doesn't offer anything, but people were good. School was great. My team was the best team I've played for sure. And the coach was a very great recruiter, because to recruit good players in Mississippi, it's not like in Albany. But he was letting the assistant coach run all the practices, and he was just like making the 11. So, I mean, coming from Siano,
different.
It was different, definitely different. But other than that, really, the weather was amazing. I don't have complaints, and it was just 1 year. It would have been maybe more. I would have gotten tired, but 1 year goes fast. So it was. I'm happy, and going back, I think I would do it again.
Yeah.
So I'm happy I did it.
Yeah, and so then you have 2 different experiences, which is, I think, a unique thing to be able to have as an international player coming over. And then we kind of step into the next phase, which I know we were talking about before, but I think is so hard for especially any international athletes who might be listening to this, is like a lot of students then want to stay in America. They have a great experience here, and they're like, okay, I want to stay here now beyond getting my degree, whether that's undergrad or getting a graduate degree as well. I know the answer because I've talked to so many people like yourself that talk about the difficulty of finding a job in your field and really being able to stay and live here in America and kind of continue the dream. But I mean, can you talk to it from your perspective of maybe once you get that graduate degree in Mississippi, what are the conversations that you're having with your family and maybe with your now wife, and even in your kind of own head of like, all right, what's next for me?
Yeah, that was. Now you remind me of another tough time that I had, um, because when you graduate, you have 3 months to start. Basically, you can apply for this card, which is called OPT.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to kind of like go too much into the um, details of that, but um, you don't have much time to find a job. Basically, it's 3 months plus 3, so it's 6 months after you graduate, which sounds like a good time, but it's not,
No, when you
because
think about how competitive jobs are, and you think about from start to finish, I know you mentioned before we jumped on here, there was a company that you had 6 interviews for.
yeah,
And so it's like, if you look at how much time that's going to take to then also get an offer and get started, like it's not, it's not a quick process.
not at all. I wish. Well, I didn't wish I had more time, but it was definitely complicated. And at first, I was looking for something specific. I had an MBA in finance. I had no idea how the job market was. So what I wanted to do was being a financial advisor, or work in some way in a finance department in a great company. I was thinking like Tesla, or Google, stuff like that. I had my expectations very high, and then I had to lower them right away. Especially because when you graduate and you're an international in America, they give you 1 year of visa, in which they call it practical training, optional practical training. You don't have to stay. Please, if you can leave, you leave. But it's considered part of your degree. They allow you to do 1 year of internship or work experience before you go home. For some degrees, it's 3. IT. So if someone that is listening to this and is considering coming, they don't know what to do in college, and they are planning or they want to stay in the US, maybe do IT.
Okay.
Because, or there's a bunch more, you can Google them, but they give you 3 years of practice, because that's a very researched job.
Yeah.
People
In demand. Yeah.
in demand. Yeah, that's the word. So I had only 1 year. I started looking in New Jersey because my wife is from New Jersey, and in the surrounding areas for a job. Then, like I said, it took me, I think, 4 months to find a job, or 3, where every day I was applying. Every day I was, interviewing, and I had offers before the one that I picked, but it was not related to my degree. Mostly were accounting, because finance is similar, and they were in Michigan, they were in Iowa, things like that. That I wasn't, after 1 year in Mississippi, I wasn't ready for another adventure, and my wife wasn't either. So she said, no, we gotta live together, and I agreed. You gotta find something that, she wanted to stay home, but she said, even if you want to move to Pennsylvania or New York, close to my family, I will move with you. She was working with Enterprise, rent a car, so she could have moved, but she didn't want to move to Iowa, and I didn't want either. So my next option, my next idea was to go back to St. Rose and say, St. Rose, can you help me find a job? They gave me the list of the open day that they had, when companies come and they advertise for their job opening positions. And so they gave me the old list, and I looked at a couple, and I found State Farm, which nobody dreams of an insurance job, to be honest.
No.
Like, but I sent my resume. The guy replied to me right away. We set up an interview over the phone. He was the nicest guy ever. He said, "I will help you out," because that's what it was. I had contacts with Zurich, with Goldman Sachs, but those are recruiters that have certain standards and certain directions that they have to stand behind, that they have to respect, you know. So for them, hiring somebody that has a 1 year visa when there is an 8-month training process, it's just not only like is not recommended, they literally can't.
Yeah.
While if you talk to the owner of a company, because State Farm is kind of like a franchise. So every agency is owned by a person that uses State Farm products. But that was the owner that interviewed me. He has 6 employees, you know, not 600, 6,000. Doesn't have a recruiter. It was him. And so he could make the decision of hiring me, even though my situation was not great. That said, it was a job that I learned at least for the basics in 1 month or 2. I had to take a couple of exams to get the insurance license and stuff like that. Super easy, but he knew that I was leaving in 1 year, most likely like 80% chance of me leaving. So he wasn't doing it for only the good of his company. Like, he's so good in me, yes, but for an employer is recommended to hire somebody that you could see at least 2 or 3 years, you know, forward, because the first year they won't give you what you give them.
Yeah.
Or even if they do, they won't exceed any expectations because they're new at the job. So I saw him, you know, giving trust in me and wanted to help me out, kind of thing. Then I did my best from the start, but what I would say for people that would eventually go through this, you have to find a person that makes the decision and is free from any higher up, you know, control, that can say, I like this guy or this girl, I'm gonna hire him, not because he will stay here forever, because I want to help him out, and he would bring, you know, diversity and joy to the workplace. It's different. In the end, they didn't have a Spanish speaker, and I speak Spanish because it's very similar to Italian. So I was dealing with all the Spanish customers, and he knew that I knew a little bit of Spanish, but I helped him out in that. But when he decided to give trust to me, it was blind trust, and he knew that I was leaving. But that's something that only a owner or you know, a CEO can do.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for that ear that kind of like gets you through, or that company that can take care of you, if you have a generic degree like I do, that there's millions of other Americans that have it, the only or the best chance you have is to talk with somebody with small companies. Don't try to go to Apple and with a MBA in finance. Like, if you are a, you know, space engineer, maybe, but with a generic degree, try a small company, and that's what helped me out. And then after that, the 1 year was over. You can request, the company that you work for can request to sponsor you. You pay a fee that is illusory, like $20 to put the request. And so many people do it. People do it with ghost companies. They create LLCs and they just do
just
it.
hire,
just to do it. And so there's a lot of garbage there, and it's very complicated and it's very hard that they pick you. I believe the rate was 20% when I requested. And then what they do is they give you a number, 130, and then they do a super random. That's what they say. I haven't seen the extraction process, but they pick a bunch of numbers. If your number 130 is not there, you're not selected, but you're not rejected yet.
Okay.
After 2 months, whoever got picked but didn't follow through with their application, because the first application is very easy and very cheap, but then the second one gets more complicated. You got to provide all the proofs. You have to pay more. You have to describe your job position, and it has to be related to your business, to your degree.
Yeah.
So you can't be a nurse with a business degree. So all these things make a lot of candidates fall out, and many candidates have more than one company sponsoring them because they do this ghost thing. I had 2 as well. I forgot about that. The restaurant that I was working at also tried to sponsor me, so I had 2. So let's say I get picked on number 130 and on number 1300. I will pick only one, and that spot is free, available. So they do a recount basically, and they say, well, before there were 30,000 spots available, now there is 8,000. We're gonna do a redraw. So if you're willing to wait, there's a second redraw before you get kicked out. Because after 3 months, so I start my OPT in July, and it lasts 12 months. So in July it ends, and you have until you can't work after past your expiration date, but you can stay in the US for another 2 or 3 months.
Really?
And then you have to leave.
And that's just waiting to see back the results of the lottery, basically.
Yes.
Okay.
So the first results come in March, and then the second ones come in July, and I believe that there's a third one that is in August. So if you are willing to wait, you can wait and see if at the third you get picked. To be honest, I didn't even look at the third, because the job was not a job. Because when you get picked, you have to stay with the employee. So I said, okay, it's not meant to be. I was with my wife for 3 years and something at the time, and we decided to get married on papers. We didn't do the wedding yet, but at some point we sat on the table and we said, okay, these are the options. We get married, or I go to Italy, because the US really doesn't.
Yeah. There's so many people. I mean, this is like really common for a lot of international people that come over here. Eventually, remember, even I had a friend in college that he went and sought out immigration lawyers' advice, and the guy was like, "Listen, probably the easiest way is the marriage route because it's so difficult to be able to get working visa."
Yeah. The easiest way, and not, if there was another way, maybe I would have considered it, because we are young. 3 years, we weren't ready to get married at the time. Now we are, because we already did the step, and we've been living together for 2 years. So, but at the time it was so rushed, it felt rushed, and it felt that the reason why we were getting married was for me to get a visa, but we wanted to stay together. But there's not another option. The other options are, you can go home and get hired by a multinational company, and then request
to be
transferred to the US. and they give you a 2 years working visa because you have like special skills that company requires, and they have like a very low quota that they can give to these people to have them come to the US. That's one option, but it's so not secure. Like you don't know if you're gonna come back. Most of the people that I know, once they left for good. All my international friends are either here and they're married, or they left. And yeah, so I also spoke with a lawyer, and he told me, listen, dude, do you want to go back?
This is what it is.
Yeah. You want to go back, or you want to stay here?
Yeah.
If you want to go stay here, just listen to me. This is what you're going to do.
Yeah. So now being here for a couple of years post grad, working, and also kind of getting back involved. I mean, have you always stayed involved with the game ever since graduating, or what's kind of now? I know you played for the Shockers last year, which I played for a couple of years ago. Now you're back involved kind of more seriously in coaching. Like, what's kind of now that you have some things sort of figured out, you're going to be able to be in America. How has it been, like, kind of getting back into the game?
Yeah. After I finished college, I said, I don't want to see a soccer ball for 3 years.
Yeah, as many of us do.
Right? Like those college seasons are just so intense. But then it's like, it's my love, I watch it all every day. I listen to soccer podcasts every day. No, but everything that talks and about soccer and revolves around soccer, I'm attracted. So I've always loved the game, and after probably 2 weeks, I was already ready to go back. I played. Well, in Mississippi, I actually worked. I don't want the feds to see this, but I volunteered in a coaching, like a team, kind of like a club team for kids. I was coaching a team that was U10. That was my first coaching experience. They literally said, listen, we need people. Do you want to try to coach? I said yes. They left me by myself with this U10 team.
Go figure it out.
I was like Googling. I had a Spanish kid that was in my team that was doing it since the year before. So he had a little notebook with some sessions, stuff like that. So I picked that up and I tried to coach this team. We were getting smacked every day. That's why nobody wanted to take this team, because the guys were not, nobody's gonna become a professional player on that group, I'm sure. But they had fun, and I learned a great lesson right away. That's good. Good lesson to learn when you coach. That when you coach kids, it's not the results. Is, do you have them come at the end of the game and say, thank you, coach, when they lose 8-0 or 8-1? That's when you're doing a good job. It's because it's 10 years old. I don't remember any game when I was 10 years old, really.
No.
So it's all about, if they have fun, they keep playing the game develops, and everybody's happy. So I learned very quickly that results, because if results mattered, I had to quit the first game. So I was forced to learn that what matters is everything else. The parents coming and saying they had such a great time when they lost, like by 6-7 goals. They were used to lose already, I assume, but that's what really like should be your goal as a coach, and I learned it right away. And then when I came here in Albany, there's a division that you play. Sometimes we play together, the co-ed, the men's league, and I got involved very quickly because I knew people from college. I just asked, where do you guys play? And then somebody asked me to try out with the Shockers and do a couple of practices. So I went to that. And in the summer, usually I go home. But because I was in the wedding process, you can't leave the country. I still am not allowed to leave the country.
Wow. How long does that last?
Since you file the travel authorization, the work authorization already arrived. I filed in July 15, and my travel authorization didn't arrive yet. And it's funny. This is a quick digression to because people should know how bad the system is. So basically, you file, and they tell you, okay, it's a green card. You file for green card, and it's green card based on you being married to a U.S. citizen. Okay, so technically, it's your wife that files for you and says, "I want me as a U.S. citizen, want my husband to have a green card so he can live with me and stay with me." And they say, "Okay, it's $3,000-$4,000 now. I don't remember. It will take 15 to 18 months for us to review all the materials that you send us, which is like Instagram pictures, deal that shows that you live together, some letters that you sent to each other 3 years ago, like the weirdest stuff that you can give to prove that your marriage is actually real.
Yeah.
So they say it takes 15 to 18 months to review the green card, but we will give you, regardless, because you paid for the fee, a work and a travel authorization and a temporary visa for you to stay while we review. So it's regardless of the fact that your marriage is real, that you have all the paper, just for requesting the green card and paying the fee, they give you the work and the travel authorization. But those work and travel authorization will have nothing to do with your filing, take up to 8 months. Why? You don't have to review anything. Just see that I paid the fee, send me the travel authorization. Because it's not based on anything that I submit. I could submit children books instead of, proofs of my marriage, and they will still give me that travel authorization, because until they finish processing it, that's what they give you. But it still takes, they say 6 to 8 months. It's been now almost 7. And I'm waiting. My mom calls me every day.
Did you get it? Did you get it?
Can you call Biden and ask him? She pressures me so much. She's like, but what if you leave without the travel authorization? Or if you leave, you have to restart the process, because they will open your file in 15 months, see that you left the country illegally. Well, left the country legally, left the country while the green card was being processed, reject it right away. So you'll have to redo it, repay, get a new work authorization.
Pay the new fee. Do the whole thing again.
So, Mom, I can't until I get this travel authorization. And so I hope it will come. Going back to, what were we talking about?
I'm talking about, so you're coaching in Mississippi, you move back up here, you're playing, and then, kind of too, we met through playing, but also too via now working with Bistera, as we've had all these kind of Bistera coaches on. What's the process been like for you, kind of getting involved in the game in that way? Because I'm sure you have enough going on with working and paperwork and immigration things to also get involved, coaching.
Yeah, like I said, I want to stay close to the game, and anything for me to stay close to the game is great. So when I'm not playing, I'm coaching. Every night I fill it up with something. So the coaching started, I don't remember who connected me to Bistera. I forgot about. At some point, Mike texted me.
Mm.
I think we had like a maybe I remember. I called. Mike came to eat at the restaurant that I work at. I work at an Italian restaurant. He came to eat. He said the food sucks, but no, he was. I think he was happy with the food, but he said, "What are you doing here?" We started talking, and one of my friends, has a house in Albany that we were trying to rent out, and it's not in the best, location in Albany, but international people don't know that, like I didn't. So I told Mike, because he said I'm bringing some coaches from England.
Oh yeah.
And so I'm looking for them to give them a place to stay. If it's a cheap house, it was a 3-bedroom, we'll take it. So then the deal fell through because we found a long-term tenant, and but we were talking about that, and then I didn't get the sponsorship from State Farm. So at that point, I reached back to Mike and I said, Mike, I'm probably going to have to stay because I decided to get married and blah, blah, blah. I'm probably going to have to stay for a decent amount of time. I know you guys are doing camps. I don't have any experience with camps, but I could eventually help you out if you guys want me to. First camp, what's it called? It was in Hartford, Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
I had to sleep there. And it was, Josh. Was Josh interviewed?
Yeah. Josh is coming.
He's coming. Okay. Great guy. Josh was the camp director. Never met Josh in my life. It was the second week that they had there. Mike was the camp director in the first week. And dude, it was like, we had to wake up at like 5:30 and go to sleep at 11:30 with the kids still running around. Wake up 3 times a night because they were making noise, yelling them to go to bed. Because we had like some 16, 17 years old that are hard, Best soccer players because they're older, but so they give you a lot of satisfaction on the field, but off the field they're punks, So I was like, wow, if this is coaching. And I was assistant coach at the time, because it was my first time. So they blindly trust me and say, go ahead, go to Connecticut, you'll meet everyone there, but you'll be an assistant coach. And so I was like carrying the gallons of water with some high school kids,
Mm-hmm.
But I remained humble and I was like, yeah, I'll do it. And after the week, I was close to soccer. I was exhausted. I slept for like 2 days straight. I don't know how Mike does it, but
yeah, seriously, I just spoke to him yesterday, and like we talked so much about that dude's work ethic. It's crazy.
That's insane. Yeah, I mean, he had to. I think it was already planned that he was only doing 1 week, but sometimes he does 3-4 weeks straight.
Yeah,
even more. And I don't know if, because one thing is the day camps. At 3 you're done, but those camps that they sleep, I did 3 or 4, are extremely energy consuming. Like you're babysitting when you're not coaching, and so it's a full 18-hour shift right there. So yeah, that was my first approach to Bistera, and what I saw was their organization, because I realized that none of the owners was there, and the camp was going as smooth as it could have gone.
Yep.
We had a couple of issues with those older kids. Somebody standing outside a room, like a window in the 3rd floor, and the maintenance guy taking a picture of the kid. So we went through some trouble, but it's normal. It wasn't any of the Bistera team's fault.
Yeah.
And now Josh is probably the fourth that well, there's Curtis too, but Josh is one of the OGs, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of, if one of the owners was there, but I was surprised by how organized they were. And now everything went smoothly and everybody was super happy. So from there, my summer was, I didn't have a full-time job because I dropped the state farm because it was only 1 year. So I was helping them out in different day camps or like week-long camps where you sleep there. And that's one thing that kind of, when I started now the winter, that sometimes we do together, and we coach actual club teams.
Yep.
It's not camp anymore. It's teams that play together, that are not there to only to have fun and enjoy the game of soccer, but they're also there to get better.
Mhm.
Because yes, when kids come to camp, they come to get better, but the having fun is probably the main
first thing, they're trying to get
priority, While when we do the supplemental training that we do now, it's to teach the kids something that they don't know, and to improve their skills, mainly, and then having fun. Of course, they go always together, but one is slightly higher in camps and the other one is slightly higher in these supplemental training sessions. So having done the whole summer of camps, I kind of became like a how do you call those people at camping grounds that do like animation? You know what I'm talking about?
I don't know. Like, are you saying like camp counselor? Like
if you go to Aruba,
yeah,
and you go to an all-inclusive hotel.
Oh,
they
like
those guys that
director of activities, basically. Yeah. Okay.
you want to play.
Yeah, come
golf,
play bingo. Come play. Okay.
I was like that. I was just trying to have the kids have a good time.
Yeah.
So the transition to being a serious coach,
Yeah.
kind of, it was, I struggled a little bit, and yeah, it was complicated, I gotta say. Now I'm back to that mentality of, I need to teach these kids something, always in my mind, while before is I need these kids to have fun all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So my mentality changed, but the change was slow, and I gotta tell you, I kind of struggled at the beginning, but yeah, and now I'm doing coaching and I'm as smooth as ever, and I love it. I realize that I am more of a older kids coach, because one thing is having 10 years old have fun. I can do that at camps. One other is teaching them the fundamentals. My background, the fundamentals weren't really told to me. My coach for that was the street. Like, I played in front of my house all day long, and I learned it kind of myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, or I didn't know, now I do, but I have to study more, and I have to prepare a session more for the 10 years old. Like, I struggle more preparing a session for 10 years old than for 16, because I don't know how I didn't know how you're supposed to tell them how to lock their ankle when juggling. I was throwing the ball.
There's so many things that you just know. Yeah.
Exactly. So I realized that is sometimes more complicated for the supplemental trainer. I'm not talking about somebody that maybe has a team of 16, 17 years old, but for the supplemental only, I believe that coaching the 10 years old is at least just as hard as coaching the 16, and they're two different things.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say from my experience, and I guess as you continue kind of on your coaching journey, like the more experience that you have doing all different levels, the better that you become as a coach, and the more you'll just get comfortable in those situations. I started probably very similar to you, and now I've almost kind of tilted a little bit in the other way, whereas like sometimes with like when really high level players come in, sometimes I find that to be harder because I'm trying to figure like,
what am I teaching?
Yeah, what am I like? I don't need to teach you. So then you just, again, it's like you're almost like wearing a different hat, like we talk about with camps. Like you're the fun guy hat, and then like when a 10-year-old comes in who's never touched a ball before, that's a different hat. And then a college player comes in, that's a different hat as well. So it's like sometimes with the younger ones that have so little experience, I'm like, oh, this is actually easier for me because I can go so basic, and you're going to learn so much in this next 30 minutes.
That's true.
It's like you might work with like a super high level kid and be like, I don't know if I've taught them anything, which again, every session is different, and every kind of kid that you work with has different needs that sort of need to be met. So but I get it. It's like one of the challenges of coaching and one of the kind of unique aspects of this gig.
It's adaptability. That's what Bistera really like pushes on.
100%.
The other day, when was it? Wednesday, I had 3 hours, and the second hour I had 2 kids. I prepared this whole session of 2v1s, and I ended up with 2 kids because they had a snowboard trip, which we weren't aware. I wasn't aware. I don't know if Mike knew it or Curtis. You should have told me, but
Curtis.
Yeah, but yeah, with 2 kids, what do you do?
Yeah, I mean,
you have to be adaptable.
It's so true. Like we just brought on a new coach, Richie, and I was talking about this on one of the other episodes. Like he was asking me questions. It's like, how do you prepare for sessions, or how do you read, like kind of when we do the supplemental training, like how do you read sort of the board to know where kids are going? And it's like, it's just so much about you kind of just show up, and then you see what you've got, and then you go from there. Like you said, you'll show up to a team training and you don't know, you could get 25 kids or you could get 4 kids, and you have to be ready because those kids are there and they're looking at you and they're saying, what are we going to do, coach? You have to be ready. You can't say, well, I had this whole thing planned, but now there's only 4 of you, so I don't know. What do you guys want to do? Like it can't be like that. And the same thing, you get 25 kids and you have a gym that's the size of this living room, and you're like, all right, well, what are you going to do with them? Same thing with supplemental. I always talk about this. I think I talked about it with James, but like we had this one group of kids we've trained. These are great kids. They would show up, especially in the summer, and James would never know how many kids were coming for this group. So he would just put the name of the kids, group. And we had a day where we had, there'd be 3 of them. It would just be the brother and the sister. We had days where 12 kids would show up. I remember still to this day, me and Needham are like running sessions, and the next group showing up. We keep looking over our shoulder, and another one comes. And we're like, so we finish the session, and Needham and I look at each other, and we're like, are you ready for 12 kids? And I'm like, I don't know, but you got to go.
You have to.
You just have to go. Yeah. And adaptability, is the name of the game when it comes to coaching, especially Bistera.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I did learn right away that because I'm a guy that likes to plan, and that's a great wake up call when you start coaching kids, because I had like
nothing goes according to plan
in my notebook, expecting 12 to 14. That was like my gap in numbers. I was just hoping, because if somebody would tell me, we have about 13 kids, I would prepare a session for 12 to 14, something like that. Like one is going to miss or one extra is going to come.
Yeah.
It's never like that. So I would have like, warm up, do this, that, play all the kid in the right spot, 15 minutes, and then 2 minutes water break.
Yep.
Now it comes with experience. So, the more you coach, the better you get at it, like everything. Yeah. But definitely I plan way less than before, and it's not a bad thing. You just can't, you have to have a topic in mind, and like I said, always thinking that you are trying to teach something, at least one thing. But other than that, gotta go with the flow.
Exactly. Yeah.
Gotta go with the flow.
Yeah.
The two kids had a great 2v1 against me for 25 minutes. I was sweating. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully they learned something too.
Yeah. Well, it'll be fun to kind of see this evolution of your coaching journey, and obviously have you knowing that you're going to be in the States for a while is certainly a positive. I appreciate you taking the time, man. This has been fun getting to know your story more. I mean, I know some of it, but just to kind of hear it from start to finish has been cool. So I appreciate you coming on. This has been a lot of fun.
Thanks for having me. And yeah, I had great time talking to you. I'll see you probably on Monday.
So, yeah, exactly.
But yeah, keep doing this. This is great, and spreads the word of soccer. And spreads the game we love.
Yeah.
Everything to spread the game we love. I'm happy to do. So.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. It's a good day.